Northwest Liberty News, picking the lock on the shackles of tyranny.
Machines are going to fail, and the system's going to fail.
The past is past, the future's now.
Don't look at me. I think these people are completely nuts.
Sometimes trouble just follows a man.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus.
Can't you stop your lips from flapping for 2 little minutes?
It's because I'm white.
I'm a man. I'm sensitive. I need to feel loved. I need to be desired.
I'm rapidly becoming a big underground success in this town.
It's a question of methods. Everybody wants results, but nobody wants to do what they have to do to get them done.
And now, coming to you live from Kalispell, Montana, brought to you by Northwest Liberty News, it's Montana Gazette Radio with your host, James White. Okay, I'm your host, James White. Thanks so much for joining me here today on the broadcast on this special Saturday edition of Montana Gazette Radio. And we are delighted to be here with a couple of, today is the 13th day of February 2021. And we are blessed today to have two of my favorite kind of folks on the show today, and that's constitutional sheriffs. And I'm talking about Sheriff Richard Mack and Sheriff Jesse Slaughter, who have both been guests on the show before. Without further delay, we're going to have these gentlemen come on here, and I'll give them a proper introduction. As I say, let me take the mute button off here. As I stated before, we have Jesse Slaughter and Sheriff Richard Mack. Jesse Slaughter is a Cascade County Sheriff here in Montana, and Sheriff Mack is the head of the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association, which is a sort of a nationwide organization. And we're delighted to have both of these gentlemen here on the show once again. The reason we're having them on is here. There's a bill that I can bring up here in just a moment that we reported on Montana Daily Gazette. It's HB 258. That has caused quite a stir here in Montana. And I think I sent you, Sheriff Slaughter, you're very familiar with that bill. Sheriff Mack, I hope you received that when I sent it over to you a little bit earlier, had a chance to take a look at it. First of all, I just want to thank both of you guys. Sheriff Slaughter, go ahead and hit your mute button if you don't mind. Hit that button there and you can, there you go. First of all, I want to thank both you gentlemen for being here with me on our broadcast today. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
It's my pleasure. Okay, Sheriff, what we're going to do, Sheriff, I say Sheriff, I have to which one? Sheriff Slaughter, Jesse. What we're going to do here first is we're going to have you, since I know you were involved in this, you are certainly the member of the Montana Police Officers Association, Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. This HB 258 bill caused quite a stir. I know a lot of people in your membership have gotten phone calls from people around, constituents. If you can, just to sort of level the playing field for us and get us everybody on the same page, break down in your words what that HB 258 is and explain it to the folks if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah. So HB 58 is basically a bill that's being proposed. Representative Hinkle, I believe he's out of Gallatin County, if I'm correct, is the one who's the sponsor of the bill. It's a pro Second Amendment bill, which basically would prevent any federal gun bans from local law enforcement having to enforce them. So your bans on high capacity magazines, your bans on AR-15s, your restrictions possibly on components, ammunition, so on and so forth. It would make it so that local law enforcement officials could not enforce those bans. I feel that. I'm sorry, what?
No, go ahead. I think it was just a glitch in the in the signal. You're good. Go ahead.
I feel it's a good piece of legislation because, we're not going to enforce that anyway. And so this would give us some type of protection from some judge somewhere saying, well, I'm going to create a court order for you to enforce this law or what have you. So I think it's good. I think it's a good bill, and I think it provides sheriffs and chiefs and our people with good protections. It also, in my opinion, properly inserts the Second Amendment and the 10th Amendment of the Constitution appropriately. A lot of people believe that there's a supremacy clause, that the federal government has supremacy over locals. That's false. It's the United States of America, which means the Constitution is simply a contract in which we allow the federal government to, under the terms of the Constitution, have some authority. So I believe this 258 properly sets that tone. There are, MSPOA has some concerns about some of the verbiage in it. I supported it as a sheriff. I'll be full disclosure. I have some concerns about some of the verbiage in it as well, but no bill is perfect. And if you're waiting for the perfect bill, you're probably never going to get anything to pass. And as a sheriff who believes that the people are the government, I felt that this set the people up in a position where they had more say. So I like that. I like the bill, and that's why I supported it.
Sheriff Mack, if you had a chance, I don't know if you had a chance to review the bill and look it over. Can you just give us your first blush, your first thoughts on it? Sheriff Slaughter here's done a great job of just summarizing it. Any thoughts that you have off initially?
Yeah, in fact, when you called me, I was just finishing up reading it. I trust Sheriff Slaughter's opinion on this, and I also trust him as a leader in Montana. I think he's done a great job, and he definitely is a constitutional sheriff. But let's specifically address the bill. Sheriffs already have the discretion to assist and work with federal agencies on mutual crimes of mutual concern. We've always had that. We will always have that. I don't believe this bill stops that. And it still would be up to the sheriff to determine if they're going to work with the federal agents on certain crimes. Certainly, I would want every sheriff to be helping any federal authority on dealing with child abduction, child exploitation, and sexual trafficking of children or adults, either one, but children, of course, pulls at your heartstrings much more. We should all be working on that. I mean, what a heinous type of crime that is. And I don't see where this stops at. Where it stops, I think it's very specific that this prevents local law enforcement enforcing unconstitutional stupid laws from the federal government. We all know what I'm talking about because Biden has promised, and the winds are certainly blowing out of Washington, D.C., that some serious gun confiscation and gun control is coming our way via the Biden administration. Sherry Jackson Lee has already proposed exactly what this bill is trying to prevent, and that is the elimination of certain weapons and registration of firearms of all citizens in America and registration of ammunition. And these are the things that Sheriff Prince and I were actually fighting when we took on the Brady bill, because Brady Bill 2 had a lot of these components in that. And so I noticed that the Brady bill, the Prince decision was mentioned. I like to call it the Prince Mack decision, but it certainly wasn't a miraculous case. And it looks like all the T's have been crossed and the I's dotted. And so I think this bill overall just gives protection to local law enforcement in that they don't have to go along, and then a judge, as Sheriff Slaughter said, can't force them to and can't come out and try to order them to. If a judge ordered me to violate my oath of office and violate the Constitution, I'd tell him to go pound sand. I'm still not doing it. I'm not violating my oath for any judge, and I'm not violating them for the President of the United States. I will maintain my oath, and all of us, the Chief of Police in Kalispell, the Chief of Police in Helena, I don't care where they are, or you could be in the smallest county or smallest city in Montana. They all took the same oath. They all have the same responsibility to protect liberty of the people they work for first. And I don't see where this bill is that big of a problem. But I was a little bit confused. What was Gary Marbut saying on this?
Well, we're going to cover that here in just a moment because we're going to read the statement from the Montana Peace Officers Association here in a moment. But Sheriff Mack, I just want to follow up with you on a question first before we get over, and I'll read that statement. You see, North and South Dakota have now come out, and their legislators, I believe, are moving to nullify any executive orders from the Biden administration. Does that mean that all states can do the same thing? I mean, if they put draconian gun laws in place, like you so aptly stated they're about to, can't the states just get together? I mean, not as a group, collectively, or I'm sorry, but individually get together and just say, we're not going to follow your mandates. And if federal officers try to come into Montana and arrest the law-abiding citizens, the sheriff can throw them in jail. What's your thoughts on that, Sheriff Mack?
I would love to see that. I think the Keystone Pipeline between the states should be reopened completely. And we don't have dictators in America. And Biden being one man to shut that down and destroy jobs so arrogantly and so callously is anti-American. And I believe that the sheriffs and the states where that Keystone Pipeline is located and being worked on should let Biden know, nice try, but we have people that need these jobs, and we are continuing with this, and we're not going to allow federal agents to come in and destroy this business and the livelihoods of so many different Americans that you don't seem to care anything about. And so I would love to see it that way. I love what North Dakota and South Dakota are doing, because they are trying to preempt Biden from stopping the pipeline in North Dakota. And Governor Nome has been doing a great job on keeping businesses open in her state. And that's what every single state should be doing. Again, liberty comes first, even before COVID-19 restrictions. And I'm sorry, but they do. No, I'm not sorry. I'm glad that they do. And thank God that there's some sheriffs and governors that still understand that. So, yeah, every state could nullify it. Look, Sheriff Slaughter kind of brought this up, and I'm going to reiterate it. The states are free and independent. And where do we see that? Well, we see it in the 10th Amendment. We also see it in the Declaration of Independence. At the very end, it says, these colonies are and have right to be free and independent states. They weren't declaring the federal government free and independent. They were declaring the states of the United States of America free and independent. And every state that came into the Union pursuant to that contract have entered on equal footing. It's the equal footing doctrine right out of the Constitution. All of us are the same as the original 13. And so the states are going to have to exercise their power here, and it looks like some of them are.
I think that's fantastic news. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the statement here, in all fairness, from the Montana Sheriff and Peace Officers Association. This is their statement. I'm assuming this is their public statement that can be read out here, and I'm going to read that now. Make sure this is popped on the screen. Okay, there it is. Let me expand this a little bit here so we can all see it, okay? Dear Sheriffs, let me back it off one. Dear Sheriffs, at this point you have all heard from your constituents that MSPOA is public enemy number one and the most anti-gun organization in the history of Montana. That is patently a false assertion. I'm sorry that you have been put in this position of having to respond to angry constituents and having them to call into question your support of their Second Amendment rights. It has been my experience that you all believe in, support, and advocate for the Second Amendment ardently. MSPOA never said HB 258 is a bad bill, nor did we ever ask sheriffs to take action and oppose HB 258. We tried to be reasonable and work with legislators to amend the bill. To be clear, we approached both the bill sponsor and Mr. Marbett before the bill hearing to discuss MSPOA's specific concern and made it clear to them that we're not opposed to the overall intent of the draft legislation. The MSPOA opposed HB 258 and asked for 2 reasonable amendments, but were told by both the bill sponsor and Gary Marbett that the amendments were not friendly amendments. When amendments are not considered friendly, you must appear as an opponent. MSPOA did so. During the hearing, it was stated that MSPOA and sheriffs agree with the overarching philosophy that a federal gun ban should not and will not be enforced by local law enforcement officers in Montana, but that we would like to see the bill amended to ensure that local law enforcement is not impeded from working with federal law enforcement on all of the other public safety issues in which cooperation is necessary, including drugs, child pornography, etc. Just because an organization asks for amendments to improve a bill does not mean the said association is anti-gun. Below my signature lines are 2 amendments that MSPOA requested. The bill will likely be coming off the table, and MSPOA will continue to request that the amendments are added to the bill language to ensure local law enforcement will have the ability to assist, coordinate, and participate with federal law enforcement on any number of law enforcement issues. The purpose of the First Amendment is to ensure deputies and officers are not violating state statute while working with federal agents. MSPOA asserts that the language in Section 4, subsection 1, will result either in local law enforcement not working with federal law enforcement because they do not want to violate state and or federal law enforcement entering local jurisdictions without informing local law enforcement. As you know, not all cases are cut and dry, and major sex crimes almost always have a nexus with firearms. The Second Amendment is necessary because the state statute, violent felony offender, is not defined. Additionally, do we want people who are federal felons to have firearms? Sure, some federal felons might have been convicted of white-collar crimes, but many federal felons who would not be prohibited people have far more egregious crimes. As I said in our weekly legislative call today, this bill will likely be coming off the table, and we will continue to work on amending it with reasonable amendments below. Once again, I apologize if you've been pulled into this with your constituents. If you have any questions, please call me. Nanette Gilbertson, I imagine she's the head of that organization. Sheriff Slaughter, I'm going to have you go ahead and respond to that. That is a letter from your organization. They are claiming, of course, that the let's say the uprising, but the people that have called and complained about it, the foundation of that is not accurate because they are pro-gun. You are a member of that. I think I hate to get wrong. You're like the chairman or the head of that organization, one of them at least, one in the administrative part of that. You care to comment on that statement that was released, Sheriff Slaughter?
Yes, Jim. So I serve on the board of directors. I'm not the chair or anything. I'm just a board member.
My bad. Sorry about that.
It's okay. No, it's okay. We decided as a board we were actually going to go in and support this bill with amendments. And literally the morning that we were walking in is when they approached the sponsor and Mr. Marbett, and he said these were unfriendly amendments and basically that they had to oppose it if they wanted to bring these amendments. And then I continued to support it as the Cascade County Sheriff. MSPOA went in and opposed it, asking for those amendments. I think the amendments that they're trying to bring up are good intended. I really do. The frustration I get sometimes with Gary Marbett is he's all or nothing. It's like, we're going to do this and this is exactly how it's going to go. So one of the unintended consequences I feel about this bill, and I want to make this clear for the record, I am in no way recounting my testimony. I supported the bill. I support the bill. I'm not backtracking. I'm just talking about it philosophically. One of the unintended consequences that I think could come out of this bill is the federal government might stop talking to us as sheriffs. It might start going to our counties and enforcing things without even speaking to us. I have a very, very good relationship with the federal agents and federal entities. They work with me hand in hand all the time. They notify me when they're in town. They notify me on their actions. They always ask for assistance. So I know what they're doing in my county. One of the unintended consequences, if we kind of create an adversarial relationship between us and the feds, we could have federal agents acting in our county without our permission, without our consent. And I think that could be a huge, huge issue. So that's one of the unintended things I'm worried about with this. As far as the language and stuff that MSPOA wants to change in the bill is just like Nanette, our executive director, laid out. We're a little worried that there are some people out there who are really, really dangerous, who we would not be able to enforce. It's kind of a weird, it's hard to explain to people, but state of Montana doesn't have a lot of prohibitions on felons in possession of guns. Our state law is very, very pro-gun. In fact, if you commit a nonviolent offense in the state of Montana, nonviolent felony offense even in the state of Montana, I think it's 10 years after your conviction, you can petition the court to get your gun rights back. And in most cases, they do. So I think Sheriff Mack alluded to this earlier. A lot of this stuff is already there. a lot of this discretion that the sheriffs have are already there. I think this bill is good because it gives us protections and ensures that the public doesn't start the more anti-gun or don't understand gun rights community starts looking at us with one eye open going, what are you doing? You should be enforcing this stuff. If there's a law created, it helps us. I think MSPOA's intentions are good. I really do wish the sponsor and the writer would work with the sheriffs on this, because I do think their intentions are good. One of the concerns that sheriffs on MSPOA have is they're just worried their deputies are going to be put in a bad spot. They're just worried their deputies are going to go in, a federal agent's going to enforce something, and then they're going to be held vicariously liable or accountable for that. And they're just trying to create some language to help protect them, to make everything feel better all around. I don't think that the MSPOA's amendments hurt the bill. I really don't. I've read through the amendments multiple times. I believe I sent them to you too, Jim, the crossed out lines and different things that they wanted to amend. I don't think it hurts the integrity of the bill. I think either way, the bill's good. So, yeah. Did I explain that?
Indeed. Go ahead, Sheriff.
I wanted to ask Sheriff Slaughter, are the amendments really necessary? I'm not, and I really don't know.
I think maybe. And well, but because here's where I'm going with this. I've been on both sides of this. I worked internet crimes against children for 7 years prior to being elected sheriff. Yeah. My partner was a federal agent. He was a Homeland Security agent, and him and I worked together, and we rescued dozens of children from harm's way. One of the unintended consequences that when you start dealing with federal court that you run into is it's weird. So federal court will tell you, well, we have supremacy. We can do whatever we want. Until you put a local agent involved in that case, and then everything that local agency is involved with, they apply out, because it just gives the defense attorney more ammunition in their so to speak. So I had a case, we lost a case in trial one time because one of the detectives on my department violated a department policy, a very, very simple department policy, nothing you'd get even written up for, but did, and it cost us the case. So I think their concern, and I think where they're coming from is that if these things don't get amended, we could have some language issues, and some people who are supposed to go to jail won't go to jail because they'll just point at this and say, well, violent isn't defined in Montana state statute. You know what I mean? For example, because it's really not. It's a sentence enhancement, but it's not, as Nanette so clearly stated, it's not clearly defined. So I think those are the things they're just trying to focus on to make sure that we not only protect the gun rights of the citizens of the state of Montana, we not only stop federal infringement, but we also are able to effectively lock up those people, particularly those felons who commit gun crimes, because we definitely want those guys locked up because they hurt our Second Amendment more than anybody.
Right. My suggestion is to all law enforcement, and I'd sure like to see chiefs of police get more involved in this, is that your MSPOA would write, regardless of whether this law passes or not, that all sheriffs in this country, and we're specifically talking about Montana right now, that they send a letter to the federal government and say, don't come in here, and like the Utah sheriffs did after Sandy Hook, and then the New Mexico sheriffs just did a year ago, a little over a year ago, to their own governor, and you let them know that we will not be allowing, not only will we not help you or participate, but we will not allow you to come in here. That's what the Utah sheriff said, 28 out of 29 sheriffs. So we're not going to allow you to come in here and make felons out of law-abiding citizens simply because you think somebody can't own an AR-15 or they have too much ammunition. And so regardless of this bill passing, I still think the sheriffs and peace officers and sheriffs and chiefs of police need to get united in that, especially in a state that's as Second Amendment friendly as Montana. But so just my suggestion either way.
Sheriff Mack, one of the things, Sheriff Mack, that was one of the parts of the bill I think that caused some rub some people the wrong way. And I'm going to give you a list here, and you can certainly comment on this. I think it was, and I've talked to Sheriff Slaughter about this before the show. There are some nonviolent crimes. I'm going to pop some of these up here. There's some nonviolent crimes that are considered felonies that would be, you would take someone's gun away if this was a fact. And you see here antitrust, bank burglary. Now that's not going in with a mask and a gun. That's not what we're talking about.
Right. I saw that. Burglary is different than robbery.
Correct.
Yeah.
Concealment of assets. Writing a bad check across the state lines, copywriting matters. I mean, if someone has a felony copyright violation, I don't think they should have to have their firearms removed. It doesn't
ever
seem
taken
right
away from them. Like Sheriff Slaughter mentioned, some were 10 years, but in certain crimes, I would say they never have to be taken away. Like an IRS crime, that's a felony, and I don't care if, they shouldn't have their gun taken away, or a Montana state tax problem that they said was felony. I don't think the person should ever have that. So I think that's a case by case basis, but there's some of those crimes listed there that a person should never lose their Second Amendment privileges.
Well, how do you balance that then? How do you balance that, Sheriff, between, the person that has, let's say they get busted for pornography. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's snuff film pornography. That's just they're in possession of it and they violated the law. There's no gun involvement. There's no firearm. There's no any of that. But there's still, people that commit pornography crimes typically are a little bit, on the edge more than the guy that writes a bad check.
It also matters if it's involved with children. That makes it a little bit more aggravated in my estimation. But yeah, going through all of those, that's something that the local officials should be examining, but also Sheriff Slaughter can vouch for this. There's not enough probation officers or parole officers to keep guns away from people, and we've never been able to keep guns away from felons. Usually the problem with felons getting access to guns and committing crimes is because they got out of prison too soon. And so I'm sure he'd agree with me, anybody in law enforcement agree, once you put them away, keep them in there. Because a lot of these crimes against children occur after these people don't even serve half of their sentence. And that's what I'd like to see, tougher sentencing.
Sheriff Slaughter, you brought up something earlier. I think that's a key. Do some of these things, you said there's not, the violent crime really isn't quote unquote defined in Montana code. Is that something that needs to be, because we saw the list of the crimes here, credit card fraud, just to look at one here. If they do make a list of violent crimes and not violent crimes, I would hope something like credit card fraud would be not in the non-violent crime section. Do we need to have the legislature, you think? And I don't even know how that would begin. I guess maybe someone would have to introduce a bill. But don't we need to define some of these terms before we start putting people away and removing their rights over stuff that's so ambiguous and it's really hard to define?
Yeah, Jim, we talked about that actually. We talked about that maybe that's what needs to occur. We just did a DUI ratification in Montana law, and it's actually requiring the Attorney General's office. Austin Knudsen has one of his deputy attorneys working on that, and they have to just to make little simple changes, they have to redo all these laws. And that's actually appropriate. That's the way we should be doing it. We should be thinking about the domino effect that laws create, because then it creates holes and creates issues and puts us all in bad spots. So I think that is something that needs to be looked at. You look at those federal laws, there's prostitutions in there, tampering with the witnesses are in there. I think those are crimes that we need to look at for prohibiting people from firearms. Those are crimes that we one time viewed them a certain way. Now they're viewed a different way. That's another issue that can come into play here. But to answer your question, yes, we have to consider those. And when we start talking about pornography, and specifically, obviously, adult pornography is protected under the First Amendment, but child pornography, when we start talking about that, which is not protected, it is a serious, dangerous crime. One of the statistics, when I was working internet crimes against children, and I don't know if the statistic is the same or not, but 85% of those that looked at child pornography were hands-on offenders. So that means they're violently raping children. 85% of them are doing that. So obviously those people need to be prohibited. I think what MSPOA's goal is to go, okay, we're good with it. We want these amendments. And then hopefully in 2023, you could further define all of those violent, non-violent, kind of separate them out type of issues. I guess I'm not overly concerned about it in Montana because you can get your firearms rights back. I mean, we are very, very open about that. And if you're a nonviolent offender, you simply petition the court. And I don't know very many people that get denied. And to Sheriff Mack's comment about probation, my wife's a probation and parole officer here in the state of Montana. And you are correct. So in 2017, a perfect storm happened. And it was the conservative legislators wanted to save money in the budget. And the more liberal legislators wanted to what I call leave no offender behind program, where they wanted to make sure that every offender was out and in the community.
Yeah.
Those two came together, and our lobbyist, Brian Thompson, talks about it. He talks about everything coming full circle where they agreed. And they thought this was this great idea. And they were pushing people out of the prisons at a massive rate, going out into community corrections. It's a very difficult task. A lot of probation officers in Montana have a 60 to 80 to 100 person caseload. And a lot of them are in possession of guns. I know this really well because we have a violent crime task force. It's a sheriff-run task force. The police department and ATF are on it, but it's actually run by me. And we go out and we arrest felons in the possession of guns. And a lot of them are probationers. Probation and parole does knock, search their house, finds guns. I think we took in 2020, we started in April. And in 2020 alone, we took over 98 guns off the street and locked up a bunch of felons doing bad things. So it is a real thing, and it is really tough. I guess where I come full circle on this and where I come back to why I support the bill and why I believe in it is if we're that far behind the curve, why aren't we giving our citizens a chance to protect themselves? Why would we ever want the federal government to be able to take away these rights from our citizens? I'll be honest with you guys. I've never stopped an active shooter. I've never prevented a homicide against another person. The only homicide I ever prevented in my life was the one that was about to be inflicted upon me. I've never in my career been able to, Superman. I have rescued a child from sex trafficking almost at the very moment, but that's it. As far as a felonious murder, I guess there's no other type of murder. Sorry, that's a bad term. As far as for saving someone from, like a murder, I don't think I've ever done that. I've been to a lot of them where I've cleaned up the mess and I've had to investigate. I've had to deal with victims. I've had to do that a bunch in my career, and it's terrible. So I guess coming full circle on it, I don't know why we will do everything we can to make sure that our citizens can protect themselves, because we brought in this violent crime task force, and I just got the stats yesterday. And even with as many arrests as we made, I think it was 163 arrests, 98 felons in possession of guns off the streets, and our crime rate still went up. So, how does the saying go? When you need us in seconds, we're only minutes away. And I also go back to, if the people are really our boss, then what are we afraid of?
Sheriff Mack, indeed. Sheriff Mack, we've got a crisis in some sense in this country because the current administration is not a friend to the Constitution. It doesn't seem. One of our most powerful allies against that type of tyranny is the constitutional sheriff. I know that you work tirelessly to educate people and sheriffs across the country. If you can, speak out to those sheriffs that may be listening in here on the show today or may catch this program. What can they do, Sheriff, to get in contact with you? I know that you would I say coach them, but you would help them along if they want to get a constitutional program, which they really should have anyway. I mean, you take an oath to the Constitution. It should go without saying that every sheriff is a constitutional sheriff because they take the oath, but the world we live in. What would you say, Sheriff Mack, to those other sheriffs out there that may be listening to this program? How can they become involved, and how can they get on the right side of the Constitution with your organization?
Well, I think that's an easy process, but you said tirelessly. That's not altogether accurate. I've been quite tired lately. And
I bet.
We are so busy and my wife and I are so busy on this. We've been getting so many calls from all over the country. We've been traveling all over the country, helping people who don't have constitutional sheriffs, and trying to change that. And I'm really sorry about one thing. It seems that there's been a little bit of an antagonistic relationship between what we're trying to do and some sheriffs who hear from maybe some of their constituents who aren't exactly tactful or respectful in going after their sheriff who might not be as good a constitutional sheriff as they should be, or as the citizens want them to be. And we provide the training to sheriffs all across the country, and we have all sorts of different speakers than just me. But the case that's mentioned in the response to this whole bill, the Prince case, is something I don't think enough sheriffs or peace officers in this country have looked at and examined enough. And at the conference we're having in Texas 2 weeks from today, we're going to be doing that. But we still have fantastic speakers, constitutional scholars, and attorneys who will be presenting. And we have some judges speaking. We have other sheriffs speaking. And the sheriff of Montgomery County, Texas, is the host sheriff of this. And that's Sheriff Henderson. And we love doing it that way. And we want to be more user friendly. And we want to be partners with sheriffs in this country. And we can't hardly keep track of 3,080 sheriffs. It's like herding cats. It's really impossible. So sometimes citizens will talk to their sheriffs about this and present what we do in a negative way, and sheriffs don't like it. And I really am working to try to change that. And with all that into consideration, I want to ask Sheriff Slaughter to rearrange a schedule. And I know this is late notice, but we will pay your airfare and we will pay your hotel to be at our conference. It starts 2 weeks from yesterday. So on Thursday, the 25th, you need to arrive in the Woodlands, Texas, which is right outside Houston. And you'd fly into Houston, and if you'll call me, I'll get it all arranged for you. And we can get you to our travel agency that's doing this. But I think it's vital that we get more sheriffs involved in from every state. We haven't had anybody from Montana at one of our conferences in quite some time. So I'd really like you to accept my VIP offer and do whatever you can to be there, because I think it'll help clear this up, especially somebody as active as you are in being a constitutional sheriff and the work you do in Montana. So anyway, Sheriff Slaughter, that's my invite. And it's also, I open that invitation to any other sheriff in Montana that you want to invite to. But email me or call me or whatever else. And Jim, you have my phone, right? You
I do,
can
sir.
give that to
I can.
the good sheriff.
I can make sure that. And Sheriff Slaughter, since you got hooked
Maybe
up.
Sheriff Slaughter already has it. Do you already have my number, Sheriff Slaughter?
I'm pretty sure I do. Yeah, I know how to get a hold of you.
Okay, please do, and we'll do anything to try to help you get there, or anybody else if you absolutely can't make it. I understand if your daughter's getting married that day or something like that.
I hope not.
Well, sure.
No, thank you very much. That's very nice, Sheriff Mack. I really appreciate that, and I will definitely look at doing that, and
Okay.
I really appreciate that. You know, I mean, one of the things is I'm a baby sheriff. I've only been doing this for 2 years. I'm not nearly as experienced as the other sheriffs. I'm not, you know, I haven't dealt with all the trials and tribulations and headaches and nightmares.
Well, that's exactly what I said when I sued the federal government. I was the youngest sheriff in the state and only been in one term, you know, so you got good things ahead of you, man.
No, I want to say that though, because, you know, I had to just, I wanted to make a choice about who I wanted to be as sheriff. You know, one of the things that, you know, my dad always taught me is, you know, you got to stand for something. And that was really important to me. And the Constitution to me is simple.
Amen.
It's simple. It's easy. Our founding fathers thought of everything. I mean, look at the Electoral College and the way everything's set up to give a representation of government that is right. One of the things I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about with us on the show, because I know probably people watching could probably scratch their head trying to figure out, why are we here? How did we get here? How did we get from the constitutional sheriff. I mean, we had a constitutional convention in Montana, the 1972, that took the sheriff from being a constitutional office and took it away. And hopefully we'll get back there someday. But the reality of it is that we lost our way with executive orders and too much judicial and executive authority. The most authority in the biggest branch of government is supposed to be the legislature. They're supposed to make the laws and they're supposed to have the most. And anymore, it's almost like laws gets passed and people sue and the law gets overturned in judiciary. You know, it just, that's not the way it was intended to be. The one encouraging thing I've heard a lot from both the Attorney General's office and the governor's office since January is we're going to let the legislature do what it does. And I think that's important. I know I recognize this, and I also can vouch for the other sheriffs in the state of Montana because they recognize this too, is that a lot of these bills are going to get passed. I think we have to get more active in the interim on bills than we ever have been before. I think that's the big key. We need to get involved, our hands in more stuff during the interim so that when we get to the legislature, we're not asking, there should be no surprises.
Right.
So it's a lot of it's lesson learned. And as a young sheriff, that's one of probably the big lessons I'm learning right now is we as sheriffs have to be involved in this process. It's exhausting. I spend more time dealing with this stuff sometimes I do dealing with, day-to-day stuff at my office because it's in session right now.
Right.
Critical.
Well, one other thing too, anybody that wants to help with the conference or wants to attend, citizens can attend also. But we're having a special breakout session just for law enforcement and public officials on Saturday. So it's the 26th and 27th that the conference is actually happening. The first day, we're trying to create that link between citizens, the Constitution, and sheriffs. So they are welcome also. So anyway, it's cspoa.org to get any information. And you in particular, call me and we'll try to arrange you and anybody else that you think ought to be there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
There it is right there. Register. I'm on the page here, Sheriff. Register for our upcoming event in Texas here.
Oh, yeah, there.
CSPOA. And then you'll see that handsome devil right there on the front. Register for our upcoming event in Texas here. So Sheriff Mack, I'm going to share something with you that Sheriff Slaughter and I talked about it last time, and I think it's just marvelous, and I want to encourage all of the sheriffs across the country to do this. Sheriff Slaughter is sending his deputies out to the schools. I think you still have this program going, isn't that right, Sheriff Slaughter, where you're sending deputies out to the school to teach the children about the Constitution? You're taking your deputies and sending them to, I think, the local, I don't know what schools, I don't know if it's the middle schools or the high schools. Is that program, and I haven't talked to you about this, Sheriff Slaughter, I don't want to put you on the spot. Is that program still active? Are you still doing that program? Is that something you're still planning on?
Oh, it's in full force. We started in January and it's off and running. It is a law-related education program in which our school resource officer heads out to the rural schools. We're just focusing on those for now, just trying to keep our resources. One of the things I made all my deputies and detention officers do is they get extra promotional credit points if they take the Hillsdale College Constitutional Series. If they go through and they take that and they show up with a certificate.
Hallelujah.
I believe they get 5. I think we're giving them 5 promotional points, which is a lot of points.
Wow.
Promotion, because I feel so strongly that if they don't understand the foundation of why they're there, then those are the ones who are going to succeed. Those are the ones that are going to lead. So then we moved it further and we teach the Constitution in the schools, both middle school and in high school. And I'm just really proud that we're teaching it from the perspective of a deputy sheriff standing in the classroom.
Oh my gosh. Okay, now I want you to tell that to the group on Friday at our conference. Yeah, you've just been assigned to be one of our speakers.
Well, Sheriff Slaughter, since you got hooked up on my program here, you have to promise to call me from the conference so we can do a live feed maybe. That'd be great.
Sounds good.
What do you think about that, Sheriff Mack? I mean, that's kind of the stuff that you're talking about, isn't it? I mean, get involved in the community, put a good face out there. The old days, the police used to walk down and know the neighbors, and they'd be friendly, and they'd be, I mean, what happened to that? How come the people are seen as enemies now, somewhat by law enforcement, as opposed to like they used to be, like the old Andy Griffith days? I know those may never come back, but go ahead, Sheriff.
Where the real problem that Sheriff Slaughter danced around a little bit was why we got here. I'll tell you, my belief on that is that just absolute utter pandemic, not of COVID-19, but a pandemic of corruption across this country, especially Washington, D.C. And it's starting to permeate the states and the state capitals. And we have got to get back to these fundamental principles. And that deputies are teaching these in schools, fantastic. That he has deputies in his office taking a class on the Constitution. Oh my gosh. I definitely want to come to Montana and compare notes on all of that, but I still want to offer my class to any sheriff or peace officer agency, police agency in this country, because I believe it's very foundational in all of this that we're discussing. And we haven't done it enough, and we don't do it enough in law enforcement. In fact, that's what got me so disenchanted when I was a rookie cop, is that after 3 years, I saw the oath of office. I compared the oath of office and the Constitution to what we actually did. And we never talked about the oath of office. We were never trained in the oath of office. We were never trained how the sheriff and law enforcement are part of the constitutional republic and what is our role in securing the constitutional republic that we live in. So, man, that's a thrill. I'm so glad I was on the show. Thank you, Sheriff Slaughter. And again, we'll have you, anybody else you can bring with you.
Well, gentlemen, we're just coming to the end here of the broadcast. I'm going to give you guys both each like a minute or so just to close out the program and give out any websites that you want to send people to. Sheriff Slaughter, if you have anything coming up, any events coming up or any community things coming up. We know, Sheriff Mack, you have the conference coming up here in a couple of weeks. We'll start with you, Sheriff Slaughter. Give you about a minute. Go ahead and finish up. If you want to, like I say, give out any websites, email addresses, anything like that.
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I hope today we established some good lines about Montana sheriffs and peace officers and what they stand for, and that we're getting there as an organization. We really are. I think that the right leaders are in the right place. I think there's some misinformation out there, and I hope that some of that got cleared up. As it relates to me and my office, thank you guys for supporting me. Sheriff Mack, thank you. What an awesome opportunity you provided me. I really appreciate that. I'm super excited. Words can't even describe. And, I really hope and pray that we will get there. I believe we can. Also coming up April 1st is our Citizens Academy. We host a Citizens Academy every spring and fall. It's an 8-week program in which citizens come in, 35 citizens at a time. They get a full tour of everything that is in our office. They get jail tours, ride-alongs. They can get shot with a taser if they want. I mean, it's full service. Firearms, we offer a free concealed weapon permit at the end of the class at graduation. So it's really a fun thing. That's our up and coming thing. You can check us out on Facebook or Instagram at Cascade County Sheriff's Office, or go to cascadecountymt.gov/sheriff and check out our website. But anyway, huge honor. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate you having me on as always. And Sheriff Mack, honor to meet you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
You mean people actually sign up to get shot by a taser? Is that right?
Yeah, they do. They do. It's crazy. And peer pressure starts, and more people start stepping up. It's weird.
I won't do that, and I won't bungee jump either. I won't do either one of those two things. Sheriff,
I wouldn't do it either.
Sheriff Mack, do you have anything you want to say in closing, and give out any websites or anything like that?
Well, thank you so much. Sheriff Slaughter, fantastic job, man. Thanks for your leadership. It's been a privilege to be with both of you today. And I'll tell you what, if we have more sheriffs like Sheriff Slaughter across the country, we're going to win this. I talked to a sheriff out of Massachusetts just a couple of days ago. They don't have, the sheriffs have been stripped of a lot of their law enforcement authority and investigative authority there, just like in Pennsylvania. And there's a lot of attacks going towards sheriffs all across this country. But Sheriff Hodgson said something very powerful. All of this horrible tyranny that's going on in our country today, the sheriffs can stop every bit of it. We can and we must. And I'll leave it at that, that the constitutional sheriff is a peaceful and effective solution to the tyranny that's being forced down our throats today.
That's right. That's right. Well put. Well put, gentlemen. I can't tell you how much I appreciate both of you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here on the broadcast. I really, I really admire the work that both of you do, and I really look forward to hearing back how that conference went here and how Sheriff Slaughter does. Speaking, you're a speaker now, Sheriff.
You're invited too, Jim.
Well, thanks, Sheriff. Let's see. I have other obligations. I may be able to pull that one off, but we can certainly talk about that after the show. But I do appreciate.
Your daughter's getting married too?
Well, no, she's not. But I might. I don't know. I don't usually travel much usually from Montana. It's from because I have so many responsibilities here. But I might be able to work something out. We appreciate that though so much for the offer, and we appreciate both you guys being on the show today. And I'll be in contact with both of you if, as these things develop. And again, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys. God bless.
God bless both of you. Okay, folks, there goes a couple of great guys right there, Sheriff Slaughter and Sheriff Mack. I tell you, it doesn't get much better than that. We appreciate both of them, and we're delighted that they were able to come on the broadcast today and talk about the issues here that we cover in Montana, especially the bill, the SB 258, HB, I should say, 258. We're glad we had a chance to read the statement by the MSPOA. And here's the thing, folks, and as I've talking to Sheriff Slaughter about, we're not really looking to throw anybody under the bus here. We're looking to put forth legislation that is most favorable to the folks of Montana and their constitutional rights, whatever that may be. That's what we're behind. We're for smaller government. We're for more personal rights and more liberty. So, however it shakes out, if it ends up with those qualifications, when it's all over, we're behind it. We do appreciate you looking in here on the broadcast. I didn't run any commercials or anything. If you want to support our sponsors, you can see them going across the bottom there. And if you live in Kalispell, go check out Dan Corn over at the Corner Shop. They're right there, right on their side of the courthouse there in town. They have all the classic cars in the display there. Dan's been really good to keep continuing to sponsor the broadcast here, and we're so thankful for them at the Corner Shop. And you can go to cornershop.net and check that out. And if you have any car repairs, if you want to buy a classic car, a hot rod, he's got lots of them. You can go check those out in downtown Kalispell. Thanks again for looking in here on the broadcast, on this special Saturday broadcast. You can support this show by going to montanagazetteradio.com, montanagazetteradio.com, or, of course, the flagship northwestlibertynews.com. I want to thank both my guests today, Sheriff Richard Mack from the Constitution Sheriff and Peace Officers Association, and Sheriff Jesse Slaughter, Cascade County Sheriff. Both fine men, and we appreciate them being here on the show. Till next time, this is James White for Montana Gazette Radio saying bye now.